everyone. Welcome to a Sunday morning edition of the Established the Show. This is your last minute live stream. I, of course, am Adam Levitan. As always, I'm joined by Evan Silva. As if we didn't have enough news going into this morning already, Evan, we get the bomb dropped on us that James White does not subscribe to Gender Labs LLC. We get the news that James White somehow got his wife, or I'm not even sure, girlfriend or whatever, pregnant sometime to coincide with the early part of the NFL season. I don't know what he's thinking, Evan, but this is a bomb that was dropped. We're going to get into all that. What's going on?
What's going on, man? Yeah, not too much, man. Just ready to talk some fallout from all the news that all the new news that we got.
Yeah. Okay. The news that we suspected was coming, I think, is the most impactful one, and that was officially getting word from Adam Schefter late Saturday night that Rashad Penny would sit out. We're getting to a place here, Evan, where there are too many running backs that I want to play, and I hate this. It's hard to compare a lot of these guys. I'm curious your take on the exact setup and how much you would upgrade Chris Carson now that Rashad Penny is not going to play.
Yeah, I mean he's an awesome play. Significant home favorite, facing a Saints defense that has really been badly missing Sheldon Rankins. They're giving up like 6 yards per carry, and then they lost their starting middle linebacker Alex Anzalone to injured reserve last week. The fumbles are a little concerning for Chris Carson, but at this point, like they're.
Go ahead.
Carson, Carson has like 30 touch upside here. The fumbles are concerning, but like they're like it's not like they're going to hand over the backfield to CJ Procise.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw odds maker Sean Corner, who's awesome at this. Sorry, I can't concentrate. Sean Corner, who is awesome at this, upgraded Chris Carson to his number 6 overall fantasy running back. That's like mid to elite running back 1 territory, and Chris Carson at his price really on both sides. I mean, I think he's an unbelievable play.
Okay. Yeah, I think the key here is that they've never shown a willingness to use CJ Procise in any kind of featured role. And so for me, Chris Carson, if you were looking for savings and you don't want to double punt at wide receiver, or you don't want to play Kyle Allen, then Chris Carson is for sure a strong option. We've also seen the benefit of Chris Carson getting much more work in the pass game lately. Let's go to this James White news, Evan, because we're going to compare all these running backs in a second here. Okay, they do have Damian Harris active. I'm curious if you think, well, first of all, we saw Damian Harris play really well in the preseason when he wasn't injured. I'm curious, A, if you think he'll play on pass downs at all. Because if he's not, then Rex Burkhead is going to get 100% of the pass down work. And the reason I ask is because we know that Sonny Michel's not going to play on pass downs at all. What do you think about the role of Rex Burkhead now? I know he's your boy. Try not to be too biased.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's still like probably a 3-man backfield, and we've talked a lot about 3-man backfields versus 2-man backfields. In great offenses, we can deal with 2-man backfields, but 3-man backfields, like it's just you're throwing darts. I mean, Damian Harris, like he could end up with a ton of work, and he could also end up with very, very little. I mean, he was a healthy scratch for each of the first 2 games, so his workload, his usage, you're just throwing darts blindfolded. I don't think we're going to get like 20 touches out of Rex Burkhead. We could get 20 plus touches out of Sonny Michel for sure. He fumbled last week. That's a little bit of a concern, and so you wonder, will they give this shot to Damian Harris? But it's like, I don't know, man. There's still not a whole lot of clarity here.
All right, I think that the site is having trouble. We are going Looks like it's going. Apologies if any technical delays you guys are out there. You can go to YouTube and find the link there. Also, we should be tweeting that out in a second. One thing about Damian Harris, Evan, is uh, I don't know if they trust Damian Harris to protect Tom Brady, right? So in that scenario, we don't expect the Patriots to be in a lot of 2-minute and 4-minute and pass down situations, but there are a lot of scenarios where Damian Harris doesn't play money snaps at all, and you get Rex Burkhead for a ton. So I like Rex Burkhead some. Still, the running back spots are so valuable. And I'm not sure I want a guy who's only going to touch the ball maybe 13 or 14 times.
Right.
I want a ton of it. Now,
and there's so many good plays, as you
right.
mentioned. I mean, you're talking about how you can't even decide who to play, and I'm like the same way. So, I mean, yeah, you could try it. You could definitely try it in a tournament, trying to play one of these Patriots running backs, trying to play Damian Harris for minimum or whatever. But that's all it is. I mean, it's just purely GPP.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't play Damian Harris. I would consider Rex Burkhead much more, but specifically on DraftKings with the full PPR and assuming that he gets the full pass down role. People want us to help them with these running back decisions, Evan. I mean, there's at least 7 now that I think are in play: Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, Chris Carson, Rex Burkhead, David Johnson, and that doesn't even mention, some of the other thinner guys. I didn't even mention Saquon Barkley, who I certainly like, but is very expensive. I didn't mention Sony. I didn't mention Carry-On. I didn't mention Devontae Freeman. Man, I don't know. People are asking how we separate these guys. For me, I would start with the 3 down plus goal line backs, and that means David Johnson. That means Austin Eckler. That means Dalvin Cook. That means Christian McCaffrey. That means Ezekiel Elliott. In terms of floor, I think Ezekiel Elliott is by far the highest. I mean, this is just the absolute nut matchup. I think that it starts to get a little bit closer when you talk about Dalvin Cook versus Austin Eckler. And I know that's a question a lot of people are having on DraftKings specifically. Evan, do you have a preference between Dalvin and Eckler?
Yeah, Dalvin, just because he has a chance at like 25 touches, and I don't think that that's really in Austin Eckler's potential range of outcomes. So I think that Austin Eckler's probably capped it around like 19 or 20, and then Dalvin Cook could maybe get like 26. So that's the way that I would view that. I mean, and the Vikings are just very, very committed to the run. They're bigger favorites, and they're like the money has come in on the Viking side, even when they were at 8.5. I think it's like to 9 and 10 in some books.
Okay, let me just retweet this for the people. If you're having trouble with the live stream and you can see this, we've tweeted out a YouTube link. And I just retweeted it. Okay. Hopefully you guys are catching this on YouTube. Let's keep going here, Evan. Everybody wants to talk about the weather in Kansas City. I didn't know that you had made a take on the weather in Kansas City. I didn't see that. But
I didn't. Those guys are idiots.
Okay.
Those guys are fucking morons.
Okay. Regardless.
No, this is what happened. So the total opened at like 51.5. And then it got bet up to like 56, and then it got bet back down to 51. So I mean, that's just like facts.
Yeah,
Like
that's crazy.
hitting that is facts. I don't have any weather takes. I'm the last person to ever freak out about the weather. Like literally the last person.
Yeah. So I guess the point is that it's all irrelevant now. I think that some of the money came in on the under because I think this game I could see a lot of passes in this game being lower scoring than people think. But regardless, it's not raining right now. It doesn't look like it's going to rain for most of the game. The wind is not a factor. I would not be downgrading anybody in this game any percent whatsoever based on the weather. So yeah, and also we have news in this game that Mark Andrews is active. He looked like he was really 50-50. We have news that LaShawn McCoy is active, but we're hearing rumors that both Darrell Williams and Darwin Thompson will be involved. How do you feel about Mark Andrews' health? Because I think he's going to come in at low. If you guys go ahead and check projected ownership, I knocked down Mark Andrews a decent amount, a pretty sizable amount, because I think people were scared and now they think he might be playing at less than 100%. How do you feel about Mark Andrews' health, or is there any way to really know?
I mean, yeah, I just don't know. I
Yeah.
just don't know.
I would note that on Mark Andrews, he was on the injury report last week with a foot injury, ended up playing and balling out, and it wasn't an issue at all. So I'm actually more into Mark Andrews now in tournaments than I was before, just because I think that people are going to be off him. And again, check projected ownership for more on that. Uh, LaShawn McCoy, Evan, is I'm a little bit more worried about. We already talked about on Friday night how you hated the matchup already for LaShawn
Hmm.
McCoy. His injury seems real. And I think Darwin and Daryl, they feel like they can plug those guys in and get reasonable work out of them. Um, I don't think you have any interest in playing LaShawn McCoy. Do you have any interest in Darwin? He's still minimum 3K on DraftKings. Again, he used up a running back spot,
Again, three-man backfield, not a good matchup. I mean, again, you could try it.
though.
You could
Yeah.
try it. I mean, I like Darwin. It's just I have no idea how to project his usage. I mean, what in matchups I tried to. I gave LaShawn like 14 touches, 7 for Darwin, and 3 for Daryl. That
Yeah.
doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun to me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think, I'm much more willing to get loose at wide receiver, which we're going to talk about in a second here, than I am at running back, just because the running back spots are so valuable. And I'm just trying to jam as many touches as I can in at running back. And you have a legit opportunity on this slate to get 60, 70 touches out of 3 running back spots easily, particularly with some of the value that we have at wide receiver. Okay, one weather spot where it does look like it's going to be raining throughout most of the game is Green Bay and Denver. And we got some questions in that. I don't think there's many plays that we really like in Green Bay and Denver to start with. Do you think rain throughout the game, it's not windy, but rain throughout the game affects Emmanuel Sanders at all?
No,
Yeah.
no. I mean, rain can like help the offense. I mean, the offense is moving forward. They take the first step. They know the snap count. The defense is moving backward. Would you, if it's muddy, would you rather be backpedaling or running forward?
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, rain doesn't matter. Wind, I mean, unless it's like torrential rain, right?
Yeah.
But wind does matter. I don't think that it looks like there's like a big concern about the win there. And it's just a gross game. I mean, slow paced teams. The Packers are they're a gross fantasy team right now. I mean, we're not really getting anything from them. We got a little bit from Aaron Jones last week. We got a little bit from Devontae Adams. MVS hasn't really done anything. Aaron Rodgers hasn't been good in fantasy. They're like a defense oriented, slow tempo team. And uh, it's just not fun.
Yeah. I think Emmanuel Sanders is typically running routes closer to the line of scrimmage. I don't think the weather is going to affect him very much. I thought Emmanuel Sanders was a pretty good fade already. I do think he'll be owned because he's extremely cheap and his game lines look really nice through the first 2 weeks. Uh, you know, Evan and I have talked about it plenty. Maybe we'll just keep going down with the ship, but 32-year-olds coming off Achilles tears on the road with Joe Flacco at quarterback at high ownership is not something that I'm going to want to play. So yeah, I have like 8 or 9 tournament teams, and I'm playing every slate, and I don't think that I have Emmanuel Sanders at all. So Godspeed to me. Um, oh, one question people want to know. FanDuel question, Evan. David Johnson and Chris Carson are the exact same price on FanDuel. Do you have a preference there between DJ and Chris Carson?
Play them both.
Okay, but then you're going to be missing one of or multiple
Yeah.
of Zeke, McCaffrey, and Dalvin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Zeke and Dalvin are they're awesome plays.
yeah,
You gotta make tough choices, man. Run more lineups.
yeah. I mean, this is the thing, and I think it's a really low T move to play multiple cash lineups, but we get into spots like this where it's tough. I think right now I do have a hedge cash lineup in, not for a lot, but I have a hedge cash lineup in where one has Dalvin and one has Zeke, and that's on DraftKings actually. Okay, Let's talk.
Yo, talk me out of like playing like a decent amount of Frank Gore.
Oh, Evan. Your boy Joe, your boy Joe B. I read something this morning from him
Yeah.
saying that he thinks that there's a good chance T.J. Yeldon can play a lot more than people think, and I don't know if I buy that too much, but I do think that in situation like they came out in that first game and passed 17 times in a row, like that's going to be a lot of Yeldon stuff, you know.
Hmm.
I do think Frank Gore has high touchdown equity, but man, these running back spots are so bad. I'd rather play Rex than Frank Gore,
Really?
especially on DraftKings.
How much do you know how much Gore is on DraftKings?
Yeah, he's like 4,400, and Rex is 3,900.
Okay. Okay. Man, Gore could get like 25 touches. Seriously.
Yeah, he could, man. God, these running back spots are so valuable. And if it was a different week, I would be more.
Yeah.
I'd probably rather play Devontae Freeman than Frank Gore too. But
Okay.
God, okay. I think we should talk about the Eagles wide receivers and pivots off them because I don't know. Like, do you have any new takes on Nelson Aguilar? Because uh, as we talked about on Friday night, I think he's fine. I think for cash at 3,600 on DraftKings, he's tough to get away from. I think you can make better cases to get away from him on FanDuel. We know Alshon's out officially now. We know Dallas Goedert is in now officially. Obviously, Deshaun Jackson is out. Nelson Aguilar is going to be very highly owned. I think that in tournaments, we're looking to get, at least I am looking to get away from Aguilar. Do you have any new takes on the Eagles wide receivers?
No, I mean, we did get confirmation that Alshon is out. So the three receiver set is going to be Arcega, Whiteside, Aguilar, and Matt Collins. It seems like people are not paying any attention to Matt Collins. Um, and man, he's a really, really interesting tournament play. He's minimum on FanDuel. He had 8 targets last week. He's in the buy low model. He had 50 yards, 5 catches for 50 yards. And I don't know. I think he's real interesting tournament play. I mean, have you heard where do you have him in ownership projections?
Yeah, around 1%,
Wow.
like 1 or 2%. Yeah, and I think I think the higher equity pivot is maybe Arcega Whiteside, but I have no problem with Matt Collins whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who do you expect Darius Slay to be on?
I have no idea. They could actually put him on Aguilar in the slot. Like I wouldn't rule that out. I mean, he was in the slot a lot last week against Keenan Allen. He's one of the rare like number ones that will, that will go into the slot at times.
Mhm.
I don't know. They might play him just on one side. That I don't know. I would kind of just like not worry about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And so other pivots off of Aguilar that I think are in play. Some of these guys we talked about on Friday. Certainly Devin Smith, I think, is in play as a pivot. Obviously, he's not going to see as many targets, we don't think, as Nelson Aguilar, but I think has a bit more big play potential. James Washington and Deontay Johnson, who obviously the shower narrative is in play, and also Deontay Johnson is going to start in place of Dante Moncrief. Arcega Whiteside on the same team, I certainly like. And then Preston Williams, I think I like a little bit more than Evan, bringing it back and kind of hoping that Josh Rosen can put something together capably in garbage time or otherwise, and Preston Williams kind of emerging as the number one. Um, any other low price pivots, Evan, or any thoughts on those guys? Because I think, if people are playing tournaments, they should be thinking about ways to pivot off of Nelson Aguilar, and they still need cheap wide receivers because we have all these expensive running backs we want to pay for.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Matt Collins. Matt Collins for I have one. I
I
have one
like
we didn't.
Matt Collins. I like Matt Collins. I'm playing a lot of Matt Collins.
All right. I have two that we didn't talk about on Friday enough.
Okay.
Philip Dorsett to me, with no tight ends, with James White out, with the Jets having the worst cornerbacks in the league, with Philip Dorsett having such good chemistry with Tom Brady. I believe he's caught like his last 25 targets from Tom Brady. Philip Dorsett sticks out to me as an awesome pivot off of Aguilar. Call me crazy.
No, I really like that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have to remember so Philip Dorsett has been like really inconsistent. Even last year, he played a good number of snaps, but he didn't really do much. But they had James White. James White dominated for like most of last season. They actually had a tight end that they threw to. They don't have that anymore. So the target distribution is really, really narrowed in New England. I still think that Dorsett probably has a ceiling of like 7 targets, and I expect him to be like in the 5 to 7 range or the 4 to 7 range. But in week one, when AB was not there yet, Dorsett was like 80% of the snaps. So I mean, he's going to be out there on every passing down. I'm not sure that we're going to get a whole lot of passing downs in this game from New England, but we certainly will early in the game. And I think that, that's probably when Dorsett would do his damage. He has a lot of speed, and the Jets cornerbacks don't have speed. So yeah, it's a great matchup for Philip Dorsett, no question.
Yeah, I like that
And
one.
Josh Gordon, of course.
Yeah, and Josh Gordon, of course. I like that one. And then I also have one to throw at you that okay, this one's a little bit thinner because I think that the Cardinals offense goes so much to the slot, and going back to college, Cliff Kingsbury's offense goes so much to the slot. But Demir Byrd is stone minimum. And I think if you think this game is going to shoot out, as Evan does, and I've actually warmed a bit to the spot for Larry Fitzgerald and for Christian Kirk and for Kyler. I think it's better than I originally gave it credit for, and I'll be playing some of those guys. But Demir Byrd, nobody is going to own. He's going to be out there a ton. And I think, as you noted, I believe you noted in matchups that Byrd was not, when Michael Crabtree played, it was at the expense of Keyshawn Johnson, not Byrd. This one is still
in a
minimum.
revenge game.
And a revenge game, exactly.
Too,
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Demir Byrd, what do you have to do to get on that roster in Carolina, man? He balled out every preseason, and they would never give him any run. He gets to Arizona, and like that's pretty cool. Like the meritocracy, I like the meritocracies because he earned it. You remember in the preseason, he was dusting Xavier Rhodes.
Yep.
So, and yeah, now he's the #1 perimeter receiver. Now, the place to attack Carolina has like by far been the slots, and that's where Fitzgerald and Kirk are running. Like Panthers, for instance, really shut down Brandon Cooks. Mike Evans didn't get very much going against them. So they've done a good job against the outside receivers, but Demir Byrd can like really, really run. So I like that suggestion as a super low owned, super cheap tournament play.
Okay. We understand the stream was down for a little bit at the beginning. We apologize for that. Evan, let's quickly go back over what we talked about at the top. Rashad Penny being out, Chris Carson, to us, we don't see CJ Procise playing a big role carrying the football. I think you can project Chris Carson over 18 carries pretty easily in this spot. And I think given his increased pass game role, it's just a really good spot for Chris Carson at 5,900. Again, running back spots this week are extremely, extremely valuable, but I think Chris Carson, Christ consider, belongs in the same conversation as Eckler and Dalvin and Zeke and McCaffrey, et cetera, et cetera. Why don't you recap the actual matchup for the ranking situation for the people on Chris Carson?
Yeah, I mean, odds maker Sean Corner, who's as good at this at just projections as anybody. I saw that he moved Chris Carson up to #6 overall running back. The matchup is just beautiful. I mean, you're talking about a home favorite running back with like 25 touch upside going up against a Saints run defense that has been terrible. Has really missed Sheldon Rankins at defensive tackle and lost its starting middle linebacker Alex Anzalone, a really athletic dude who never comes off the field. It's injured reserve this past week. So yeah, I mean, you really couldn't draw it up a whole lot better than how it's going for Chris Carson. And there is still some inherent risk because of the 3 fumbles, but we're just like it would have been more risky if Penny was active, because then if he messes up again or something, then they just give the load to Penny. They're probably not. That's probably not going to happen. Now that same risk that risk has been kind of removed because the #2 back is CJ Procise now.
The other situation we talked about at the top was the weather in Kansas City. Looks like it's going to be mostly fine, and we have not downgraded or not downgrading anybody in the Kansas City game. So any plays that you had there that you liked is fine. The running back situation, I do think they're going to play 3 backs. I think they're going to play McCoy, Darwin Thompson, and Darrell Williams. And as we've talked about plenty, that's scary. Evans talked plenty about the matchup concerns when you play Baltimore in the run game. Uh, and we would much rather attack them through the air. And then the other situation we talked about early on was the James White, not subscribing to Gender Labs LLC. Uh, you know, the best case for me for Rex Burkhead is he gets all of the James White role plus a little bit more. And the reason he would get all the James White role is because they just don't trust Damian Harris in pass protection on Brady. And we know Sony Michel doesn't play on pass downs at all already. So anytime Sony Michel comes off the field, it's most likely going to be Burkhead. And I think they sprinkle in Damian Harris a little bit, unless the game gets out of hand in the second half. So I think Rex Burkhead is also a fine play. I think when it comes down to it, I'm trying to get 20 to 25 touches in all three of my running back spots, specifically for cash. And you can make cases for Rex also. And I think Rex is a really good play if you don't feel comfortable punting with Kyle Allen, or you don't feel comfortable punting at wide receiver twice. So yeah, I think that's about all we missed. Okay. We are going to get to the listener questions from you guys now. Please tweet them this time at Establish the Run. Don't tweet them at me. Tweet them at Establish the Run. I'm pulling it up right now. And if you guys start tweeting some questions, I will go ahead and read them. Somebody asked if the current live stream, if I'm on the toilet. I'm not in the toilet. I'm at WeWork, and somebody stole my microphone. I swear to God, I had a microphone in a filing cabinet here next to my desk at WeWork, and I came in just to grab it. It's been here for like 3 years. It was just gone. Ridiculous. So I apologize.
Man.
I apologize if the mic doesn't sound good. I'll get another one. But
who steals a microphone? Come
and
on.
I had other stuff in there. They just stole the microphone. It's crazy. Yeah, so I apologize if the sound is not great. Again, tweet at Establish the Run with any of your questions. Season-long question for you, Evan: Deebo Samuel or Tyrell Williams?
You know, Deebo's in this 5-man rotation that is, I mean, last week he had a big game. They manufactured touches for him. What was his slot rate? I was meaning to look that up because, you know, you want slots against the Steelers. I want to say that his slot rate was kind of high last week. I don't know. I'll look that up. Tyrell's a tough one, man. At Minnesota, just don't like to start dudes at Minnesota pretty much at all. He's playing through a hip pointer. I'll say Deebo while I look up this slot rate for him.
Okay. Gore or Burkhead today, non-PPR? I'm going to say Burkhead. I have a feeling that Evan would say Gore, though.
Yeah, I would say Gore. I mean, Gore could get 25 touches at home against the Bengals.
Thoughts on playing both Ertz and Aguilar in cash? Yes, I think that's totally fine when you consider Aguilar's price. You know, like sometimes when we think about guys from the same team in cash, like we have to also think about it in targets and opportunities per price, and certainly Ertz and Aguilar targets for their prices are very good. Devin Smith, a cash play on DraftKings. I think that's a little thin because we could see him end up being the 4th or 5th option in Dallas's pass game. You know, if Witten gets going and if Randall Cobb gets going. So I think Devin Smith is a little bit thin in cash on DK. Would you agree there, Evan?
Yeah, he's got like a 2 or 3 target floor.
Yeah.
Deebo was 36% slot. That's not bad. He got 3 of his targets and 3 of his catches and his touchdown on moving out of the slot. You want slots against the Steelers because they covered them with linebackers. But yeah, I'm going to go with Deebo over Tyrell Williams.
Yeah, I like that. Very tough spot for the Raiders. Ertz versus Kittle. It's Ertz for me. I think Ertz will be significantly more owned. But I do think that Ertz's target projection is higher, and we've seen Kittle do a lot of blocking early in the year. It doesn't mean that'll continue today. How close do you think Ertz versus Kittle is, Evan?
Yeah, you mentioned the ownership differential. Yeah, I bet that Ertz will be twice as owned as Kittle. I mean, but Ertz is just like, I mean, he'd get 15 targets. He had 16 targets last week. Like That's crazy. Kittle doesn't have that. Kittle doesn't have that in his range of outcomes. He might get like 10. 10 would be great. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think you pivot to Kittle though in tournaments. I mean, I think he's going to have way less ownership, and he's kind of like due for a monster game. I know that due isn't like a real thing, but I mean there is like regression to the mean,
Uh,
and this is a really good matchup against the Steelers. And I think that this game could go over too. It's actually been getting bet up.
yeah. Yeah, I bet the over in this game earlier in the week, and also, George Kittle, number 2 in the buy low model. Josh Hermsmeyer's buy low model also. So yeah, I'm playing in tournaments. I'm trying to play Evan Ingram and uh, Kittle a bunch at the tight end spot.
Yeah, me too.
Season long question: Dak Prescott or Kyler? I think pretty easily Dak for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Thoughts on Greg Olson? We didn't get to him. Yeah, if you're looking to pivot off of the top 4 or 5, out of the top 5 tight ends, I'm not sure you need to, especially because I think Mark Andrews' ownership is going to tank a bit. But I think Greg Olson would be a fine pivot. We both think Kyle Allen's going to play well.
Yep, yep. Olsen third among tight ends in air yards.
All right. Let's see here. Thank you for all the questions. All right, from Phil, he says he doesn't want to pair Kyler with a wide receiver in cash on FanDuel, so he doesn't want to play Kyler with Elfitz or Kirk. He wants to know if Hollywood Brown is viable for cash on FanDuel. That's not something I would do, but what do you think, Evan? Also in that range is Josh Gordon.
Man, Marquise Brown and cash. I don't think it's that crazy. I don't think it's that crazy. The way that the targets are being distributed there, just like 2 guys are getting them, and then the rest of the guys are just low volume role players, and it's Andrews and Marquise Brown. Now you have the health concern with Mark Andrews. You have a great matchup against Kansas City for Marquise Brown. 13 targets last week. The arrow continues, the trajectory continues to go up. I don't think it's crazy. I would rather play him in cash than Josh Gordon in cash. And then what was the other question?
I think that was it.
Okay.
Favorite defense other than New England or Dallas? Yeah, I think on FanDuel we pointed out on Friday. I believe it's the Seahawks that are like 3,500. Evan.
Yeah, I think they're 3,400.
3,400. And I think my favorite cheap defense on DraftKings would be the Chargers, 2,500 home against Deshaun Watson. Obviously, that offensive line against Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa.
Yep, definitely a good one. Are you gonna play any Dallas?
It's so hard to get there. They're 4,300 on DraftKings. I think I might have like one lineup with them, but man, it's hard. Like unless they score a touchdown, it's really hard for them to pay off at that
Yeah,
point.
and do you have them high projected ownership?
Yeah, they'll be owned. Them and New England will both be owned for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Got a question from Brian Threen about top plays. Yeah, we included Larry Fitzgerald in top plays and not Christian Kirk. It wasn't like, we just didn't want to include both. I think I would give Larry Fitz the slight edge. But I think it's really close between him and Kirk. Do you have a preference between Kirk and Larry Fitz, Evan?
This is the problem with building like Kyler Murray teams is like, who do you play him? You could play him with both, but usually that doesn't work out, man. It's pretty rare that works out. You kind of got to pick one. I remember I used to do this when Derek Carr used to be decent, and he had Cooper and Crabtree, and I try to play them both, but you needed to just pick one. You really needed to pick one. Larry Fitzgerald's top 10 in the NFL in targets, top 10 in catches, top 10 in air yards. This is the time to play Larry Fitzgerald. He's the number one. And so I would lean toward him. Like, I just think he's a better play 1-for-1. But Christian Kirk is an awesome play too. And he's not far behind Larry Fitzgerald. Like,
Yeah.
he's top 15 in all those categories, So you just got to kind of pick one.
Yeah, and I think, in my hedge lineup, I think I'm going to have one with Fitz and one with Kirk. Speaking of DK Cash, Nicholas Carbone says Manny Sanders or Curtis Samuel. I would try to get to Kirk or Fitz if you had to decide between Manny Sanders and Curtis Samuel. Man, I might just reach for the upside. I think Curtis Samuel's in such a great spot. I know Manny Sanders is going to be way more owned, and by the numbers, Manny Sanders is way better play. If you want to go with the two condom approach, I think Manny Sanders is your option. But I think I personally would go Curtis Samuel, although I probably wouldn't play either of those guys in cash. Manny Sanders versus Curtis Samuel, Evan.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, man. It's not an easy game. Um, one other approach to the Kyler thing, if you think that he's going to have a big game like I do, is just play him and David Johnson, and you can get access to like all the scoring. And if Kyler hits DJ for a touchdown, we're in business, which he did in week 1.
Yeah, no, I like that. In tournament lineups, I like playing Kyler with DJ. Season long question: Kyler Murray or Deshaun Watson?
You just play Deshaun Watson every week, pretty much.
Yep. From Bella Praise, she's got the Establish the Run logo. Shout out to Bella. She said Kelsey and Devin Smith or Watkins and Ertz FD cash. Pretty easily Watkins and Ertz for me on that. I think Watkins is just extremely cheap on FanDuel. And yeah, I don't think Ertz is that far off of Travis Kelsey if we're talking about a floor perspective here. I think that's a pretty easy one.
Wrote a bunch in the matchups column about how I really like, last week the tables kind of got flipped toward Demarcus Robinson and Hardman. I think we see the tables flip right back to Sammy Watkins this week.
Yes, I mean, Sammy Watkins on FanDuel is extremely easy to get to. Marlon Mack, Marlon Mack's active. He seems like he's reasonably healthy. Matchup is awesome. He's going to be like 2% after he would have been like 15% if he never had that injury. It's a little thin for me given what else we have at running back, but do you have any read on Marlon Mack's health, Evan?
I mean, the beat writers kind of all along, suspected that he was going to be fine. And even like he was given a walking boot. He didn't even put it on. He was just like holding it. So I think he's fine. You can definitely play him. But what your hope? I mean, there is some concern because Jordan Wilkins played so well last week that maybe he could get a little bit more run. But I think that at some point, like we're going to see these routes that he's been running. Marlon Mack 38 routes, Naheem Hines only 19. We're going to see those start to turn into targets.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot more people are asking about defenses. Look, guys, like obviously Dallas and New England are, by raw numbers, the best plays. I mean, there's no question about it. Touchdowns from the defense and special teams are extremely high variant. Like New England could dominate and Dallas could dominate and still not score a touchdown and finish with like 8, 9, 10 points. We saw that with the Ravens in week 1 when they played the Dolphins. So I'm willing to come off of these elite defenses to get much better positional plays. It could look really bad in the end if they go off for a 30 ball again, and that's just it is what it is. All right. Season long question: better bench stash, Ty Johnson or Jordan Wilkins?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, I think that they should both be stashed in every single league, unless it's like you get like 4-man benches. Um, I would oh man, that's a tough one. I would probably go with Ty Johnson. I think. I mean, he's a super explosive dude. I don't think that he would ever be like a true bell cow. Whereas if Jordan Wilkins gets in the right spot, see Jordan Wilkins though he would have to deal with Naheem Hines and potentially Jonathan Williams. Jonathan Williams is there as well. They kind of like him. He hasn't been playing, but I mean, if Marlon Mack were to miss time, then I think Jonathan Williams could come into play. With Ty Johnson right now, all you're dealing with is J.D. McKissick and Paul Perkins. So, and I mean, I'm sure that they'd add someone if Kerryon went down. They might just bring back C.J. Anderson or something like that. But Ty Johnson, he's a really explosive dude. He's a lot more explosive than Jordan Wilkins is.
Question from Rich. He says, is punting 2-3K range wide receivers too thin for DK cash? I thought about doing that until we got Chris Carson. And now, yeah, I think it's a bit thin, but yeah, I mean, I'm not going to talk anybody out of, taking chances with Dorsett or Arcega-Whiteside or James Washington. It's just going to be really thin and probably unnecessarily thin now that we have Chris Carson in play. Let's see here. Question from Andrew Smith is an interesting one. Concerns that the Bengals doubled John Brown, similar to what they did in Tyler Lockett in Week 1. Yeah, uh, Bengals defense, uh, they can do. Well, I don't know, Ivan. I don't think there's a concern, but I'll just say this: that I prefer Josh Allen. If I could only have one, I would prefer Josh Allen to John Brown. But yeah, I think John Brown's a fine play.
Yeah. What was the alternative?
Well, he's saying that the Bengals did a good job doubling Tyler Lockett in Week 1. Is there concern
Oh,
that they could do the same to John Brown?
I don't know. They could, we're too we get too worried about this stuff, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, Hermsmeyer, says, "Oh, defenses don't matter," like, and he really means that towards like fantasy. Although I think he started to, he got so full of his brand that he's started to expand into real football. But and I mean, it kind of is true, like in some aspects, but we get way too worried about like, oh, could this guy get double teamed? Like, just it's usually just hindsight stuff. Like,
Yeah.
we look back and say, oh, well, this
Mhm.
happened in the game. It's not like that was necessarily like all too
Yeah.
predictable, and more often than not, that stuff doesn't happen.
Yeah, and that's kind of Hersmeyer's point, that
Yeah,
projecting it is
exactly.
harder, right? Like looking back, it's easy to say, "Oh yeah, the defense did X, Y, Z." Projecting it beforehand, what the defense is going to do is extremely hard. So yeah, I think we're getting too far into the weeds with that too. I agree with you. Uh, David Johnson versus Eckler on FanDuel from Too Stupid to Win. Man, I prefer Eckler, but I'm certainly warming up to David Johnson. But I still prefer my boy Austin Eckler. Love that dude.
I'll go DJ, but love Eckler too.
Any interest in Darren Waller at sneaky low ownership? No, thank you for me. I think really tough spot for the Raiders. They might not have the ball enough. I mean, they probably won't have the ball enough.
Yeah, I mean, you could throw that dart in a tournament. He's going to have no ownership, but I mean, what's the upside here?
From Craig Jacobin, is there any chance that Minnesota takes to the air in a game that clearly funnels to the pass? Yeah, I mean, I think the talent that Oakland has is more up front, but I don't think they're going to come into the game and take a pass-centric approach. I did think about going with like a Cousins Thielen stack on one of my tournament teams, but I didn't think I had enough teams out there to allocate to that. Any interest in that? Any type of Cousins Thielen in tournament stuff or digs?
But Dante Moncrief officially inactive. Um, yeah, I mean, you know, Cousins was bad last week. Okay, Cousins played poorly. I don't think anybody gets more crap for just having a random bad game than Kirk
Hmm.
Cousins. Like, you ever notice that? Like,
Yeah.
people, I don't. It's so weird. Like,
It's on national TV a lot when he has his bad games, like coincidentally.
yeah, that's true. Like, quarterbacks sometimes have bad games. Like, it's just, anyways. He had a bunch of turnovers, and I don't think that the response from the Vikings is going to be, hey, let's air it out this week based on what they just saw. Like, I think that the response is going to be what the intuitive response would be, and that's just to give the ball to Dalvin Cook a whole hell of a lot, and maybe even try to get Alexander Madison 10 touches. I do think that Kirk Cousins can be efficient here, and that's really what we're looking for. But we've also seen that like, what we want is efficiency from our quarterbacks, but as opposed to volume. But when the volume gets so low, there's like a breaking point.
Mhm.
Um, and so, like, I would just be worried about Kirk Cousins having like 17 attempts. He might throw for like 205 yards and 3 touchdowns in the 17 attempts, because I think that teams all year are going to have passing success against Oakland. Even in that first terrible, terrible game by Joe Flacco, he had like over 100 passer rating. Mahomes, lit him up, and so I think that Kirk Cousins can definitely be efficient, but I think this is going to be a run first game for sure.
Yeah. All right. Getting a lot of the similar questions over and over again here, guys. We haven't mentioned Mecole Hardman, Evan. He's a guy that I want to be high on a weekly basis. Just ridiculous speed, and with Tyreek Hill out, opportunities there. his price has come up to a point where I don't think he'll be owned that much. And Evan and I talked plenty about how we think the best way for the Chiefs to beat the Ravens is vertically. So yeah, I'm still on Miko Hardman. I definitely had at least one of him.
From Adam Teicher, longtime
Mhm.
Chiefs beat reporter. He says that based on pregame warmups, Darrell Williams will start at running back for the Chiefs, Darwin Thompson number 2, and LaShawn McCoy looks like he might be third in line. This is just a situation to avoid. I
Oh, yeah,
mean, they're
yeah.
playing the freaking Ravens. McCoy was seen limping, heading to the stadium.
Hmm.
Just not a good situation in fantasy. Darrell Williams, he's like a Spencer Ware. He's like an early down banger. You don't want to be using early down bangers against the Ravens.
From Colin O'Callahan, can you play Kyle Allen and cash on DK? You certainly can, in my opinion. Best possible matchup for a quarterback, arguably. Good weapons, and 4K is 1,000. What should be 1,000 below what should be the floor for a quarterback price.
Yeah, isn't he? He's 4K.
Yeah, and like the cheapest normal quarterbacks are 5K. Yeah, it's absurd. He's cheaper than Kyle Allen is cheaper than Cowboys defense. Jameis Winston, we haven't talked about a lot. I am playing Jameis Winston some in tournaments for sure because I think Daniel Jones will play well, and I think it's going to force Byron Leftwich to call a more aggressive game plan from Jameis Winston. And Giants have the worst pass rush in the league, arguably one of the worst secondaries in the league. So yeah, I'm playing Jameis Winston some for sure. Season-long question: Jameis Winston or Kyler Murray for you, Evan?
In that scenario, oh man, this matchup is so good for Jameis. I mean, I think that there still is risk of it being another freaking Peyton Barber game, and you really don't have that risk with Kyler. So I'd probably go Kyler. I'm
From
biased
Zach,
though because I'm really in on Kyler.
yeah.
Yeah.
From Zach Price, Mac Hollins and cash. Okay, I think that is a little bit too thin for me. I don't think we need to do that.
Yeah, another guy who's got like a floor of like 2 or 3 targets.
Yeah, we haven't talked a lot about Deontay Johnson. Now that Dante Moncrief is ruled inactive, does that make you any higher on Deontay Johnson or James Washington?
No, because was already starting to factor Moncrief out,
Mm-hmm.
but it just kind of solidifies what we expected. This is interesting from Jeff Zrebick, maybe one of the best beat reporters in the nation. Ravens. It will be interesting to watch Mark Andrews today. He's clearly not 100% with his foot.
Hmm.
I would assume that is based on Zrebick, insider knowledge and watching him during warmups.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think, especially with that tweak, he's not going to be owned at all, and that's a good thing you can say for Mark Andrews. But yeah, I think on my main teams, I'm not going to be playing. I wasn't playing Mark Andrews when I thought he was healthy. Let's put it that way. So yeah. Question about cheap defenses. You guys like Chargers. What about pivot to Steelers? Any interest in the Steelers defense, Evan, on the road against Jimmy G?
Lean no. Lean no.
Let's do some quick ones here before we get out of here. We have about 5 more minutes, guys. Vikings defense or Seattle defense? It's going to be Seattle for me, I think. I have no faith in Teddy Bridgewater. Can you punt with Cardinals D in cash? 3,200. I'd rather try to get to Seattle from Joey Coppola, but I think Kyle Allen's going to play well, but I could be wrong. And Cardinals D has a reasonable pass rush. I don't know. I've heard of worse ideas, but it seems pretty thin.
Yeah. Last week, the Panthers left tackle Darrell Williams could not block Shaq Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
This week, he's got to go up against Chandler Jones. So I do kind of like that. I picked up Cardinals D in a couple of season longs, and I'm streaming them.
John Brown or Larry Fitzgerald?
Larry.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Greg Olson or Devin Smith?
I will go with Olson for safety, but I wouldn't have any problem playing Devin Smith over him if you just kind of want to play the sexy new toy.
From Neil, Carson or Eckler in DK Cash. I'm trying to get to Eckler for sure. Probably rather be fading. Well, I don't know, man. I mean, you're going to not be able to play one or two really good running backs on DraftKings and Cash. It is what it is. I'm trying to play both Eckler and Carson.
Yeah.
We didn't.
Carson on FanDuel.
Yeah, we didn't mention Miles Sanders. I've seen a lot of people talking about him. I don't know, man. Still think they're going to play 3 running backs. Not a lot of interest.
Agree.
Jameis Winston or Russell Wilson in season long.
Russ, baby, Russ.
Russ. OJ Howard or Gerald Everett in season long.
You take this one. You're standing by OJ, right?
Yeah, I would play OJ there, but I do like the spot for Everett. And probably, I didn't look at the 2-game slate yet, but I am going to play that. I usually play the Sunday night, Monday night slate, and I'm sure that Gerald Everett's definitely in play there.
Yes. Yeah, I made sure, like, after I did my mains, I jumped right to that slate just so I could put in Everett at mid price.
All right, a couple more here. Tyler Boyd, we haven't talked about. Jake Mason is asking in play for DK Cash. I don't think so. I think this is a rough spot for the Bengals going on the road to Buffalo. I do not like the spot for Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, I do think that there's a scenario in GPPs. This game keeps getting bet up, which I thought was interesting. But there's a scenario in GPPs where you play like Josh Allen, John Brown, and bring it back with Tyler Boyd.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yep. Wentz or Kyler. If you read Evan's matchups column, you would know the answer there is Kyler, right, Evan?
Yeah.
Hardman or Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon for me, but is safer. But I like Hardman a lot. Obviously, people are asking Lockett or Hardman. Let's not get crazy here, guys. Obviously, Tyler Lockett over Hardman. Julio or Keenan. We didn't talk about Julio or Keenan too much, but I prefer Keenan. And that's not to take away from Julio, who I think is in a reasonable spot. But as Evan talked about on Friday, the way that the Colts play defense and the pace at which they play, it's just a better spot for Keenan. You still think Keenan over Julio, right, Evan?
Yeah.
All right. Last question here. I'm just taking the latest one that I see. Darren Waller or OJ Howard in season long from Trevor Mayhew.
Waller or OJ Howard?
Yep.
OJ, man, what are you doing, baby? He just has sucked. I mean, he just has sucked. And he doesn't suck, but he has sucked. So I don't know. I'd play him. I'd play him over Waller.
Okay. Yeah, me too. Okay. Really, really, really apologize for that technical delay. I think we were only down for 3 or 4 minutes, but really, really apologize. Hope we got to as many answers as we could for you guys and give you as much information up to date as we could. Good luck today. It is one of the best slates of the year. I'm going to go check on all my lineups. Evan's going to go make sure all his lineups are set. So for producer Paul, for Evan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.